Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Be Bold America. I'm your host, Jill Cody. Today our program is Saving the American Dream. As former Montana Governor Steve Bullock said of the new book, Saving the American Dream, that it delivers an urgent and inspirational call to action and a path forward, guiding we the people toward resilient resistance. This hot-off-the-press book explains that the American dream, at its best, is an ethical ideal and a moral compass. If respected and sustained, it can guide the United States through Trump 2.0. The author, John Roth, asks us, what is most important for the United States today? Are we Americans doing the best we can? His book, Saving the American Dream, takes us on a journey that goes where such questions lead. We have big things to do. Our guest today is the author of Saving the American Dream, Dr. John Roth. Dr. John Roth is the Edward J. Sexton Professor Emeritus of Philosophy at Claremont McKenna College in Claremont, California. Dr. Roth is named the U.S. National Professor of the Year by the Council of Advancement and Support of Education and the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching. Dr. Roth's expertise is in the Holocaust and genocide studies, as well as in philosophy, ethics, American studies, and religious studies. And last but not least, Dr. Roth is the author or editor of more than 60 books. I think this is Dr. Roth's third visit to Be Bold America. Welcome back, Dr. Roth. I'm delighted to have you here again.
Jill, I'm so excited to be with you today. I think there's such a perfect fit between Be Bold America and Saving the American Dream. So I'm very excited to see where our conversation goes.
Oh, I am too. It is just such a pleasure to have you here. If I'm correct, this is your third visit to Be Bold America. I think in 2023 we discussed your book, Warning, the Holocaust, Ukraine, and Endangered American Democracy that you wrote with Dr. Leonard Grobe. And you were on the show in 2024 with John Rothman, formerly of KGO Radio, talking about the most dangerous document ever written, Project 2025. Am I right? Am I missing a visit?
Yes, right. And part of the theme in both of those earlier programs was to raise a warning about things that were happening in our country that were not going to turn out very well. The warnings were right. Unfortunately, they weren't heeded by the American people as well as I would have hoped.
Me too. I did want to interject here that there is a website called the Project 2025 Tracker. And after 16 months of Trump being in office, 53% of Project 2025 has been completed. So now, Dr. Roth, you have returned to tell us about your new book, Saving the American Dream. First, tell us why you felt it was necessary to write this book, and what is the American Dream? I know that's an easy question, but not an easy answer.
Well, after the elections in November of 2024, I was deeply concerned about what the meaning of those results might be and where the country might be headed. And I decided that it was time to get back to my writing desk and do something that would, I hope, help to save democracy in our country, save the rule of law, and protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. So two things happened. One was, as I thought about the kind of book I wanted to write and the length I wanted it to have, I realized that the Constitution of the United States is a perfect book outline. It's a template for a book of the kind I wanted to write. The Constitution has 7 articles, so 7 chapters. It has a preamble, which lends itself to writing a kind of preamble or an introduction to the 7 chapters. And then it ends with amendments. And I really liked that notion as a way of having a conclusion to the book to talk about the amendments that historically have been added to the Constitution over the years, and also the concept of amendment caught my eye. We talk about making amends, about changing things, realizing that things are not completely correct and we need to amend them and try to set things in a better direction. So I use the Constitution as kind of the outline for the book. And then when I was thinking back about what ideas would I like to incorporate in this book that would have 7 chapters, a preamble, and a epilogue or a set of amendments at the end, I decided to go back to a concept that has been a friend of mine for over 50 years. It's this interesting, ambiguous, somewhat elusive, but very important idea that we call the American dream. I've been tracking that idea for more than 50 years.
Wow.
And I have been, wrestling with it. It's a concept that is used and I would say abused in a lot of different ways. It isn't found in the Constitution or even in the Declaration of Independence, but both of those documents are fundamental for what I think the American dream at its best means. The concept came into popular use about 100 years ago. It was popularized by an American historian by the name of James Truslow Adams. In 1931, Adams published a book that he called The Epic of America. It was a book that was right in the middle of the Great Depression. And in the book, he uses the American dream as a kind of pivotal concept for advancing, what he wants to say about the history of America and about its ideals in particular. So Adams developed a kind of definition of the dream that it works pretty well. He said that the American dream is the dream of a life that is better, more abundant, and fuller for every American, with opportunity according to ability, including a person's potential and achievement. Now, those ideas are general. They require a lot of interpretation, and they can also be distorted in various ways. So my teaching about the American dream, which has gone on for 50-some years, wrestled with all of those dimensions. Now, I'll add just one more point, and then I'll stop and see where you want to go next. The first time I really taught about the American dream as a specific concept was not in the United States. I was living in Innsbruck, Austria in 1972 and 1973, and I was there as a Fulbright scholar, and part of my responsibilities as a visiting professor at the University of Innsbruck in Austria was to give a year-long series of lectures about American history, American literature, American religion, American philosophy, and I had to have a kind of umbrella concept to link all these lectures under, and I hit on the idea of the American dream as a way to do that. And ever since that time, I have been interested in and reflected on and thought about that idea. And lo and behold, now in 2025, 2026, this book called Saving the American Dream has appeared. Now, it's important to save the American dream, in my view, because the American dream can serve as a kind of concept that collects the best ideals of our country. Things like liberty and justice for all, as we say when we pledge allegiance to the flag. The idea that people have rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. the idea that, as the preamble to the Constitution says, that we established a Constitution in order to form a more perfect union, to establish justice, and to promote the general welfare and the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. So these are the values that the American dream can serve to collect and highlight and remind us of when we think of the concept at its best. A lot of times the American dream has gotten distorted and equated with the pursuit of wealth, the pursuit of power, personal ambitions about success,
things,
and qualities of that kind.
How much you can buy.
Yes, how much you can buy and consume and things like that. And those ideas have swirled around the concept. But it's more profound than that by far, and it even is critical of distortions that equate it with the accumulation of wealth and influence and power.
I'd like to read a paragraph from your preamble. It's because it leads into the next question that I want to ask. So you wrote, "We are the ones. That pronoun is fraught and fickle, but in the context of the American dream, we are we the people. That American we includes every citizen of the United States. It confers responsibility, especially on those of voting age, to care about and look after the good of all Americans, including the affordability of living day to day. If we fail to do that in the elections of 2026 and 2028, the American dream and our democracy could be gone." So I wanted to ask you, because another line that you wrote that really impacted me was, "The right to vote anchors the American dream." And what just happened this week, excuse me, what just happened this week is since the 1970s, Republicans haven't wanted people to vote. And just Wednesday, SCOTUS gutted the last vestiges of the 1960s Voting Rights Act. And so now I'm thinking, we the people, how can anyone of color think the American dream is for them now? This Supreme Court has been working on destroying the CRA since 2013. Roberts himself has been working on it for decades, and I now believe it's just done, finished. And so I think this act just demoralized and disempowered a huge a number of citizens in this country. What are your thoughts about what happened at the Supreme Court this week and how it relates to the American dream?
I have been concerned, even dismayed by the recent court decision, but I want to contextualize that feeling in the broader way, which you alluded to. I think that if the American dream is to be saved, the elections upcoming in 2026 and 2028 are absolutely crucial. They will be the most important elections in my lifetime. And my lifetime is quite long, actually. I'm now in my mid-80s. So I've been alive for a lot of American elections. And I thought that the election in 2024 for the presidential office was probably the most important election in my lifetime at that time. Now I'm thinking I was mistaken about that. I think the elections upcoming in 2026 and 2028 are crucial. Therefore, the decision that the Supreme Court handed down yesterday that has the effect of really under the pretext of being colorblind is really an action that serves to undergird white privilege, if not white supremacy in our country. It's really a reactionary decision that is reminiscent of what happened, at the turn of the 20th century when the post-Civil War Reconstruction efforts in our country were overturned, and we entered a period that is known in American history as Jim Crow, which had other Supreme Court decisions like Plessy versus Ferguson that argued that separate facilities were fine as long as they were equal, when everyone knew that they would never be that way. So the right to vote is fundamental to the American dream. It's fundamental to our democracy. And if it is not fully honored, and if the franchise is not made open and available to American citizens, those who are eligible to vote, in the fullest possible way, then our democracy is hindered, the rule of law is compromised, and the future of our life, as the Constitution in its preamble describes it, being something that we want to promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. If the right to vote is curtailed and equal representation for people is denied, then we're in serious trouble.
Well, as you said, the right to vote anchors the American dream. You are listening to Be Bold America on KSQD 90.7. Many voices, one station. Listen globally online from the ksqd.org website. Our topic today is Saving the American Dream, and our guest is Dr. John Roth, who is the Edward J. Sexton Professor Emeritus of Philosophy at Claremont McKenna College in Claremont, California. I'm your host, Jill Cody.
Hey, Tom Hartman here. You know how I always say democracy is not a spectator sport? Well, Jill Cody knows the rules of the game, and she delivers it to you straight on Be Bold America, Friday at 5 p.m. right here on KSQD. Jill brings in the best political thinkers of our time who will show you what to keep doing, stop doing, and start doing to support democracy in our world. That's Be Bold America, Friday at 5 p.m. right after the Tom Hartman program, right here on K-Squid, 89.5, 89.7, and 90.7 FM and ksqd.org. Tag, you're it.
KSQD takes a moment to thank the more than 230 listeners who contributed during our recent pledge drive, including 47 first-time donors. Collectively, you helped us surpass over $40,000 raised, and your support makes it possible to bring you the many diverse programs you hear every day on KSQD, including Be Bold America, which you're listening to right now, and we are more than grateful. Listener support is essential to the ongoing operation of Community Radio K-Squid. If you haven't yet done so, you can make your tax-deductible donation at ksqd.org. Thank you so much.
Exploring the intersections of rhythmic music from New Orleans, Kingston, Jamaica, and Havana, Cuba. The Downbeat Shuffle program, Fridays at 6 p.m. on KSQD.
We're back, and our topic today is Saving the American Dream. This new book by Dr. John Roth is an inspirational call to action. The American dream at its best is an ethical ideal and a moral compass. If respected and sustained, it can guide the United States through Trump 2.0. So another, where I'd like to go now, another thing on you also wrote in your preamble was talking about freedom. Let me see if finding the page here. Freedom requires resisting autocracy, oligarchy, kleptocracy, corruption, incompetence, stupidity, and all the other vices that threaten to dominate American life. Amid Trump world darkness, freedom entails seeking truth, respecting one another, honoring the differences between right and wrong, justice and injustice. Saving the American dream is all about all of that challenging work. And I don't remember who said it, but a quote that was like, a necessitous man is not a free man. So, talk to us about freedom and the American dream.
Well, freedom or liberty, as the founders sometimes spoke of it, is just a fundamental American value. If our political life unfolds in such a way that it does not encourage and nurture and support freedom, then the whole American experiment fails, I think. So the Constitution emphasizes these things, especially in the early amendments to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, for example, and the First Amendment, which is very much, I think, under attack in various quarters today. Freedom of the press, freedom to assemble, freedom of speech, and freedom of religious participation and outlooks. The totalitarian playbook or the authoritarian playbook, which is often referenced, that Donald Trump and other dictators in the world are using, always attack freedoms of that kind. And they they do it by intimidation. They do it by bringing false and illegitimate indictments against people who they regard as enemies. We have that going on right now with this ridiculous indictment of James Comey because of the seashell meme, as it's being referred to. And there's an attempt to squelch and to diminish the right of the people to express themselves, to exert criticism, to question, to advance their feelings. And this is the connection between that and voting is palpable, because the power that an individual citizen has in this country to create change. I mean, there are multiple ways in which individuals and groups can do that, but in a democracy, the means for making change have to be democratic, or we don't have democracy anymore. So that's why the right to vote and the idea that the elections that we have are fair and free and that they aren't rigged by decisions that are taken that compromise their fairness and honesty. These are things that have to be at the top of mind for Americans, especially in 2026 now and 2028.
Well, in your book, one of the questions that was asked is, what is most important for the United States today? So what is most important for us today?
I would say perhaps the most important thing for the country right now is to root out the corruption that is rife in the society.
And so visible. I mean, they don't even hide it.
And it is, for me, the corruption, emblematic of the corruption is the incessant lying that we get from our president. Trump thinks that he can say anything he wants, and if he says it, the presumption that he makes is that it should be accepted as true. But it's from start to finish. The corruption that we have in our country is based on a disrespect for truth, a disrespect for evidence, a disrespect for treating people with respect, and an unwillingness to defend what the Constitution's preamble calls the general welfare. Mm-hmm. Instead, what we have are lies that lead us into wars of choice that are crippling our economy. We have ignorance that results in tariff policies that every economist who knows anything about economics regards as madness on the part of Trump and his acolytes. And this is taking us into circumstances that are literally unhealthy for our country, but are very detrimental to the well-being of our economy and to our national security.
I would even say that it's more disdain. The corruption is so serious and so obvious, and it's almost like rubbing it in our faces, or whatever that expression is, our noses in it. I mean, it's really a disdain for all those things that you mentioned. And what makes me angry, and this is a little sort of a button issue for me, because I wrote in my book about what happened to some of the founding fathers that weren't famous. We know of the famous ones like John Adams and Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, but there are those that signed the Declaration of Independence, and it said, "We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." And it was a simple statement of fact in those days. The day that they signed that document, each legally, under the British viewpoint, became a traitor and was sentenced to death for treason by the legal government that controlled the lands and their homes. So they knew as soon as they signed that they were going to be charged with treason by England. And so just to share a couple of stories, because I want to connect the disdain we see today for our country, for its people, for the American dream that we love, and what these people gave up. For example, one of the wealthiest, Thomas Nelson was his name, from Virginia, he died in debt at age 50 because he'd mortgaged his home to the hilt to pay for the revolution. But the British seized his home and lands and damaged it so severely that he was unable to repay his mortgage. Well, just think about that today. If we can't repay our mortgage, our life is ruined, and his was too. And then John Hart from New York, he died alone and miserable 3 years after signing the Declaration. His wife died soon before the signing of the Declaration, and his 13 children found themselves scattered among sympathetic families to hide them from the British and conservative loyalists. And John Hart never saw any of his children again. And what these men gave up for this country, and you wrote a beautiful line. I've never thought of it this way, but you wrote a beautiful line that says, "The authors wrote a country into being." And these men, I just feel that we're betraying them. Your thoughts?
I was looking for a kind of motto or a statement that could open the book, and I decided on a passage from Alexander Hamilton's first Federalist paper. Hamilton and John Jay and James Madison, as your listeners will know, wrote a series of essays after the Constitution was signed, but it hadn't yet been ratified. We say it hadn't been approved by the country, by the state, so it wasn't yet in effect, even though it had been written and signed by people, many of whom had also signed the Declaration of Independence, although not the two lists are different in some ways too. But Hamilton, in his essay, in this batch of essays that were essentially op-ed pieces written by these early Americans to persuade their fellow Americans that the Constitution should be supported and ratified and then defended. He said that it seemed to him, he's writing this in 1787, he says, it seems to him that it has been placed before the American people at that time the basic decision of whether their government will be something that is based on reflection and choice, those are Hamilton's words, or will result from accident and force. And he was saying this is kind of a pivotal moment in the history of humankind. He was saying what the Americans were going to do. Would they be willing and able to establish a constitution that would try its best to use reflection and choice informed by reflection to establish a constitutional order that included democracy, voting rights, the rule of law, and the things that we take as fundamental to our country? Or would we be ruled by, he used the term accident and force, by corruption, by lying, by caprice of one kind or another, which is kind of where we're threatened. Mm-hmm. So I used this passage from Hamilton at the beginning because it seemed to me that we're at the same kind of crossroads that Hamilton was writing about, 250, almost 250 years ago. And it's up to us. Nobody else is going to bail us out of this. It's up to us as people to decide: are we willing to allow ourselves to be ruled by authoritarianism, by corruption, by self-dealing, even by court decisions that seem to us to be contrary to what's best about American life? Or are we going to resist? Are we going to insist on government that has reflection and choice at its foundations and that is faithful to what the preamble of the Constitution articulates as the aspirations of our country? I think the preamble to the Constitution of the United States as a piece of writing is, to my mind, there is no writing in American literature that is more magnificent than that preamble to our Constitution. And it's the standard by which we must judge the people who hold authority and who govern us. And if they are not acting in harmony and in fidelity and in consistency with the aspirations that are laid out in the Constitution of the United States, then we should, be rid of them and find people who will defend those values. Just one other point here. The early founders, those people who signed the Declaration of Independence and the ones who suffered for doing it, and the ones who signed the Constitution of the United States, they were hopeful people, but they had recognition that ran through thinking just like a consistent kind of thread that they didn't want anyone to forget. And that was the idea that everything hinges on the character and the quality, the integrity of the people who hold offices and hold power in our representative democracy. They used an old-fashioned word to get at this. It was the idea of virtue, that people had to be virtuous in order to give us good government. And that meant, for example, that they didn't lie all the time, that they didn't make deals that were based on self-interest and on lining their pockets and not caring about the what the Constitution calls the general welfare. And they were strong on this idea that you could set up all the checks and balances, you could have the documents written out and all the rest, but if the character of the people who were elected to office and held office and acted on the responsibilities that were conferred upon them, if those people lacked a basic ethical orientation, it wasn't going to work. It would be corrupted. It would be, taken advantage of and used. And we even see this because one of the things that Trump 2.0 and the first Trump administration was adept at also is that you can use institutions against themselves. Even the law can be used that way. Even court decisions can be used that way. So that it isn't sufficient just to say, well, we set up this system and it's nice and neat. It has checks and balances and the division of powers and things of this kind. It's all well and good, but if the people who are holding the offices and exercising the authority that is conferred upon them in that system, then the thing is very tenuous and it might come apart and not result in the hopes that Alexander Hamilton and those other signers of the Declaration and the Constitution had at the time.
That gave up everything. We're speaking so seriously, and I want to play you a song which might lighten the mood a little bit.
Great.
Louise Hartman, Tom Hartman's wife, writes political folk songs for our times. And I found one of her early songs that I think is perfect for our topic today. It is titled The Betrayal of the American Dream. Toward the end, she writes this hopeful line, against the betrayal of the American dream, it's more than a whisper, it's a rising scream. Here it is. And I'll get your take on the other side.
Okay.
They told us a story, said it was ours to own. A house, a job, a place to call home. Our fathers and mothers worked their hands to the bone, believed in a promise, never felt so alone. Now it's the betrayal of the American dream. What we once held high is unraveling at the seams. From the factories to the fields, we're losing ground, while the ones at the top, they just doubled down. The betrayal of the American dream. They've stolen the future, silenced the scream. Unions busted, wages kept low. Millionaires buying out what they don't even know. They talk about freedom, but it comes at a cost. And the soul of the nation is everything we've lost. This is the betrayal of the American dream. What we once held high is unraveling at the seams. From the classrooms to the coastlines, jobs shipped out, while the rich feed the light, planting seeds of doubt. The betrayal of the American dream. They've stolen the future, silenced the scream. From the classrooms to the coastlines, jobs shipped out, while the rich feed the light, planting seeds of doubt. The betrayal of the American dream. They sold us out, or so it seems. Promises written in bold ink, so clear, now just shadows of all we held dear. For every closed factory, every broken town, they raise another mansion just to tear us down. We're tired of the struggle, tired of the lies, watching Wall Street thrive while Main Street dies. A nation divided with no one to trust. We're taking back hope, they can't bury us. Against the betrayal of the American dream. It's more than a whisper, it's a rising scream. For the farms and the factories, the heart of the land, will fight for a future they can't understand. The betrayal of the American dream. We're waking up now from the corporate scheme. We're more than a paycheck, more than their take. We're the heartbeat of history they can't remake. And as long as we stand with our voices strong, the dream may be broken, but we'll prove them wrong.
We're listening to Be Bold America on KSQD 90.7, 89.5, and 89.7 FM. Many voices, one station. Listen globally online from the ksqd.org website. We're here with Dr. John Roth, who is the Edward J. Sexton Professor Emeritus, Claremont McKenna College in Claremont, California. So, Dr. Roth, we just heard Louise Hartman's song, The Betrayal of the American Dream. Do you have any thoughts to share?
Oh, I sure do. The first is I wish I'd known about the song while I was writing the book, because I would have woven some of it into the book itself. So a couple of things that I picked up from listening, and I'll have to go back and hear it again. But the notion that the dream is betrayed is a factually correct idea, and in a way, it's not surprising that the dream is betrayed, because the dream is, and you can see it if you look at the preamble to the Constitution. It's full of aspiration. It's hope. It's saying this is what we have to strive for. It isn't at all an idea that the American dream has been achieved, or that that we can kind of rest easy and say, oh, we got to the point where we're now realizing it. The dream is always something that is taking us to task because we betray it. We fall short of it. And that's part of the virtue of the concept. The American dream is, and I think the song reflects this, it's sort of saying to us, look, we aren't living up to our ideals as well as we should. And maybe we can do better. Maybe we won't ever succeed in completely eliminating betrayal of the dream, but we can take steps that take us toward fulfillment of it. And that's, I think, one of the key things about the dream. Now, I picked up a couple of themes here. I think I heard in one of the lines the lament. That is, it wasn't just saying that the dream has been betrayed, but there was lamentation in it. There was a kind of feeling like, as the one line I picked up said, we're tired of the lies.
Mm-hmm.
We're tired of them. And today, on May 1st, in our country, where there's been another, public, nationwide outpouring of people who, in one way or another, are saying, we're tired of the lies. We're tired of the betrayal. And it's the power of ideals to keep us trying to do something that is better, trying to achieve something that could be more hopeful and more humane than we have actually been able to accomplish in our history. So I think the song points out something important about the dream. That is, the ideals contained in the dream can lead us to see that we haven't lived up to them. The dream has therefore been betrayed. But it can also inspire, because of the ideals, a kind of resistance against the forces that would attack and destroy and decay what's best about American life. And the American dream also gives us a key idea, I think, because it is aspirational, that says, hey, look, the future isn't decided. It isn't inevitable that authoritarianism and corruption are going to prevail. The future has an open quality to it. If we seize it and walk through the doors that are open, we can change things. I think we're seeing this in the country right now. I think there's an impatience. As the song said, we're tired of the lies. I think people are getting fed up, and that they are feeling like we are better than that. We're better than we're being governed. We're better than our leaders are acting, and we can, if we act together. It has to be a communal activity, I think. We have to act together. We can change things.
You write in your book that progress towards a more perfect union cannot happen if words such as all-inclusive, bias, discrimination, diversity, hate speech, oppression, privilege, racial inequality, and social justice are censored and eliminated from the American vocabularies. And I would add the phrase DEI, and our federal government has banned the words climate change from even being said or written anywhere in the federal government. But you write that words matter. What words do we need to start telling ourselves to keep the dream alive?
Right. Here are some of the words that are most important to me about that. Honesty, fidelity, integrity, respect for other people, realization that difference and variety in American life enhance it. Patriotism is a word that we need to recover. And I love the distinction that the historian Timothy Snyder makes when he distinguishes patriotism from nationalism.
Right.
Snyder
Yes.
says, and I think he's right, that nationalism is kind of about my country, right or wrong. It's flag waving. It's, my country's way or the highway. But patriotism is, he argues, about encouraging people to be their best selves in terms of the ideals that their country stands for. And so I'm, in Snyder's sense of the term, I'm a great advocate and believer in the importance of patriotism, because I think his idea that the patriotism is about being our best. We're not at our best when we're, deporting people without due process of law. We're not at our best when we're anti-Semitic or racist or misogynistic. We're not at our best when we're telling lies, when we're, pursuing wars that don't have to be fought. And so these are ideas that we have to recover. We have to retrieve them. And that was part of my idea in saving the American dream. A lot of people would say, oh, the American dream, that's a bunch of baloney. Who could believe in any of that? And I wanted to write a book that says, hey, the American dream is emblematic of who we are when we are at our best. And therefore, we have to defend it and retrieve it just as we would if we were, seeing that our flag was being, mistreated and disrespected. We'd try to retrieve it. We'd try to save it. And I feel that way about this idea of the American dream as well.
One of the most powerful division, separating people from we the people, trying to divide. And one thing that I studied with Dr. Stephen Covey many years ago, and one of his points was, turn that around, flip that upside down, and you celebrate the difference. You're different from me, celebrate that. And if you see something differently than I do, then tell me more. What am I missing?
Yes.
Tell me more about that. And I look at our country and even families, down the family unit to the country, that we're like a diamond. And there's all these facets in a diamond, and one facet is directly opposed to the other facet, right across, but there's other facets in there. But the whole thing together makes a beautiful object, bright.
It's reflected in this motto that uses Latin words, but we translated e pluribus unum, out of many one. Mm-hmm. And I think there was genius in the people who said we should highlight that idea as one of the key virtues and values of American life, that we respect and value variety and difference, but we believe and strive to make the variety and the difference create a very rich, multifaceted unity in the country.
That's brilliant.
It's a complicated and tension-filled idea, but it's the right notion, the right value for us as a country. Mm-hmm. We are in our name the United States. The states were not all the same. The people living in them are not all the same. But we realized back in the days of our founding, and we're trying to struggle back to it today, I would say, that in the variety and the difference, there can be a unity, a community that is rich and valuable precisely because it respects and honors variety and difference. It's culturally about ourselves. I mean, think about the foods we eat, about the music we hear, about the art we enjoy, the literature we read. It's full of voices that are coming from different places and different spaces and different traditions and cultures. Our American heritage so rich.
Well, in the last 3 minutes that we have together, I know you also asked, are we doing the best we can? How can we do the best we can? And, and in these last minutes, I like to ask what ideas you might have for us to keep doing, stop doing, and start doing the best we can. What could we keep doing?
Jill, I want to say that I love this part of your Be Bold America.
Oh, thank you.
Ask these questions, and I've copied from you. I've used these ideas quite a lot.
I'm so flattered.
Since I first heard them from you, and they're so powerful. They're so simple and direct, and they open up conversation. So I thought about this, hoping you would ask me to a close,
and
what to keep doing, what to stop doing, what to start doing. So I thought about it a little, and I'll be brief because I know our time is short.
Right, we've got.
So what we should keep doing is resisting. We should keep resisting all of the forces that are antithetical to, that are corrosive of, and disrespectful of the American dream at its best. So keep resisting, and the American people we're doing pretty good about that. We have more work to do, but May Day is an example of resisting taking place. Mm-hmm. What we should stop doing, we should stop taking things for granted. And in this case, what I want to emphasize is we should stop taking for granted that things have to be the way they are. We should instead come back to a basic idea of the American dream. That is, that the future is open. There's possibility, and that we can move ahead and change things. Now, we have to be careful because possibility, as I like to say, is a fickle friend. There can be things that change for the worse, not always for the better. But we should stop thinking that we are in a situation of inevitability with regard to the authoritarianism and the corruption that Trump 2.0 is inflicting upon us. And then what we should start doing is doing what we can. I had a friend who sent me a message the other day. We were comparing notes about, what we're doing, and his parting comment was, we do what we can. And I think it's a wise and important idea for your last question about what should we start doing. Mm-hmm. We should start doing what we can to save the American dream, to save democracy, to protect voting rights and things of that kind. And there are many, many things, if we think about it just a little bit, that all of us can do. No one of us can change everything. It's going to take a lot of people acting in concert and community with one another to do what needs doing, but we all can do something. And just before coming online here, give you an example. I decided, before I come on Jill's program, I want to do something. So I sent a small contribution to John Ossoff, who's running for the Senate in Georgia. And I sent a small contribution to Mr. Planter, who's running now for the Senate seat in Maine. I think that one of the most important things on the political agenda is to try to take the Senate back from the Republicans who have been completely spineless and weak and totally subservient to Donald Trump and his authoritarian corruption.
What I'd like to add is also, personally, to decide to be a dream saver. Because if we give up the dream will be dead. All of us have to be a dream saver. Dr. Roth, thank you for being our bold and impressive guest today. You've written an intense and brilliant book. I just read it from cover to cover, made all sorts of notes, and I really highly encourage people to find your book, Saving the American Dream, and see what we have at stake and see how you could be a dream saver. So thank you very much for being on the show.
Well, Jill, thanks to you and your journalism, your broadcasting on Be Bold America are more important than ever.
Oh, thank you
And
so much.
so I pay tribute to you and express gratitude to you for your good work.
Oh, thank you so much. What's up next on Be Bold America? Please join co-host Mike Clancy on Friday, May 15th, when we will be hearing how to mobilize to defend democracy. We are the last line of defense in preserving our democracy. There are no knights in shining armor coming to save us. There is only us and the hard work that must be done urgently. We are the cavalry. Gary Lux, author of We Are the Power to Win the Future, describes tactics and strategies we need to embrace to defeat MAGA. Broken down by red, blue, and purple states, it provides specific step-to-step information about opportunities for you to make a meaningful difference. Please join co-host Mike Clancy for How to Mobilize to Defend Democracy by joining Be Bold America Friday, May 15th at 5 p.m. As a reminder, Be Bold America is available as a podcast for free on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other favorite platforms. I want to give a special thank you to Be Bold America's program engineer, Elena Wachter, and to our station's program director, Howard Feldstein. You are listening to KSQD Santa Cruz and KSQD Prunedale. Many voices, one station. Listen worldwide online at ksqd.org. My name is Jill Cody, and thank you for listening to Be Bold America. Until next time, keep, stop, start.